Hello and welcome to the Cash Game Locks podcast. I'm Big Italy 42 here talking about some cash games to help you out on FanDuel and DraftKings. Now, obviously these are very early and subject to lineups and guys being in and guys having good spots and things like that. But I'll run you through all that, try to help you out, give you an idea of some guys that I'm looking at as tentative cash game plays on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So I'll go ahead and start off at FanDuel as I do. And my favorite player at pitcher, obviously you really like Jacob deGrom, but there's also a game in Coors Field. There's some other games you want to get some exposure to. So I'm trying to save a little bit of money here. And I went with Brett Anderson. $7,700 facing an Atlanta team that is second only to the White Sox as worst in the league against left-handed pitching. Striking out over 22% of the time. ISO below 1. This is a very, very bad team against left-handed pitching. Brett Anderson is not a dominant pitcher, but at $7,700, he's a guy who can certainly pay off his tag. He's a decent favorite as well over Alex Wood on the other side. This is just an offense that's seemingly incapable of putting together any sort of offense. So I really like Brett Anderson. If you can't afford DeGrom, obviously I'm trying to get some big bats in my lineup. Next up is Kyle Schwarber. Went back to the well with Kyle Schwarber here. He's $2,500, went down a little bit actually from last night. And I mean, he's just a guy who's a good hitter. He was brought up to be a hitter. He's a guy who has a below average glove. He's not a great defender, but a guy that you can count on to give you good at-bats and decent production and still fairly close to minimum salary. Definitely a guy that I want to get in my lineup tonight. And I'm going to roll him again. I rolled him last night in my cash game lineups on FanDuel. Paid off a decent amount at $2,500. He's going to be a popular play once again at that price as well. So keep that in mind. But definitely a guy that I'm playing once again, $2,500. First base, there's plenty of options as there are. I mean, if you're asking about my list that I have at first base, it's very long. I mean, there's probably nearly 10 first basemen I'm considering across all formats, of course. But for me, Prince Fielder going up against Kyle Kendrick tonight just makes a lot of sense. Kyle Kendrick, one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball. He's just a very, very bad pitcher. He's allowing 2.01 home runs per 9, among the worst in the league. I believe he's second worst in the league, actually, in that category. He is the third worst on the slate against left-handed. Actually, I'm sorry, second worst on the slate behind Shane Green against left-handed pitching. 9 home runs allowed already. 21 walks to 27 strikeouts. This guy just gets crushed by lefties, gets crushed by righties. He gets crushed by everyone. So Prince Fielder for me at $4,400. I'm paying up for him at first base. I know there's plenty of other good options. You can go to a guy like Albert Pujols against Kyle Gibson. He had a nice game yesterday. He's getting it going. I don't mind guys like Joey Votto against Jason Hamill, who's struggling right now. But for me, Prince Fielder in Coors Field against one of the worst home run pitchers in all of baseball. Sign me up for that. Second base, I'm rolling with the hot hand once again. This is the guy that I always seem to talk about. All the guys here at DF Cafe talk about him. And he had a little stretch there where he faced a bunch of tough pitchers in a row. But if there's one player from the Phillies that you like playing, that you feel good about playing, it's Cesar Hernandez. He's $2,900, had a monster game again last night, giving him now his second straight game with 2 hits and 3 extra base hits over those 2 games. Last night, had a double, a triple, 2 RBIs, a run scored, 7.5 fantasy points on FanDuel. So he's just a great cash game play if you ask me tonight. Are some other options around this price. Robinson Cano really heating up. Mentioned Shane Green struggles with lefties. So if you want to get a lefty bat there, Robinson Cano's a great play as well. DJ LeMahieu, $3,100, right around this price. You can play him as well. Ben Zobrist also same price as Cesar Hernandez. So I think he's a fine play as well. Next up, third base. He hit a homer last night, got on base a couple times, and then his price dropped. Todd Frazier, $3,400 at home. I absolutely love him tonight in this spot. He's got power. Jason Hamill's the guy who struggled to stay healthy, has not looked good in his last few starts. Of course, you would like to get a guy like Nolan Arenado here. Adrian Beltre is going to be a popular play as well, Manny Machado. But for $1,600 less than Arenado, $1,000 less than Machado, $500 less than Beltre. I think Frazier gives you similar floor and similar upside at a much cheaper price. So I'm going with Todd Frazier here tonight in my cash games. Shortstop, once again, I mean, this guy actually went down $600, Troy Tulowitzki, and now he's at home against a lefty. He homered in his second at-bat last night, which makes 3 of his last 4 games now with home runs. So he is a guy that you going to be really, really tough for you to fade him tonight at home at Coors Field against Matt Harrison, who struggled in his first start. Just not a good pitcher at all. So this is a guy that is very, very beatable. And Troy Tulowitzki, priced now at a manageable level, so you definitely want to get yourself some exposure here. Moving to the outfield, I'm not saying I'm not playing these guys from Colorado, left-handed bats, but they are in a lefty-lefty matchup. Guys like Carlos Gonzalez in particular, not good at all. Actually terrible against lefties so far this season. So really not a guy that I'm playing outside of GPPs. I don't mind if you go with a guy like Charlie Blackmon. You know, I like Charlie Blackmon, but Michael Brantley at $3,600 against Matt Garza. Matt Garza's a guy who's been struggling quite a bit this season. He's actually decent against left-handed batters over his career, but this year at 367 WOBA allowed, 509 ERA. This is the guy who's getting pounded by lefties. Hasn't been so good against righties either, so I'm taking the discount here with a hot hitter in Michael Brantley at $3,600. A guy I played in my cash games last night as well, panned out pretty well. Christian Yelich, $3,000, going up against Jeremy Hellickson, the Hell Dog, who has had a 367 once again, WOBA against lefties this year, allowing almost a 6 ERA. So Hellickson, a guy I love picking on, especially with a guy like Yelich, who's starting to get it going. Now in Chase Field, great hitter's park for him. He's in a great spot once again. And then my final outfielder here, Josh Hamilton, $2,900. He's a lefty. A lefty against Kyle Kendrick. So sign me up for that. We know that Josh Hamilton is a good hitter when his head is in the game. And at $2,900, batting in Coors Field, this is a great spot for him. A great way to get cheap exposure with significant upside in Coors Field tonight. So I'm a big fan of his. There's some other outfield options you can certainly consider here around this similar price tag. So these obviously aren't the be-all, end-all plays. But as you're looking around this price tag, you got Matt Holliday against Carlos Rodon at $3,100. He's an okay play. Adam Eaton, always a popular cash game play when he gets a weak righty. He does have Michael Wacha tonight, who's a pretty good righty, so he's not a great option tonight, but a guy that I wouldn't blame you if you went that route as well. Nick Markakis actually homered last night, his first home run of the season, but he gets Brett Anderson, so that's not a guy I'm looking at. But Brandon Barnes is a guy I'm considering at $2,900. He's should be batting around 8th in the lineup, which you don't like, but I think he's a fine option there. And then Chris Young gets a lefty. We know Chris Young, the lefty specialist, should be batting 2nd, $2,900, against a fine pitcher in Wei-Yin Chen, but definitely a guy that you aren't shying away from with your batters. All right, let's move over here to DraftKings. Got a tentative lineup set up for you here as well. Once again, went with Brett Anderson. He's only $7,400 on DraftKings. Great price for him there. So I'm taking advantage of the discount and rolling him out again. Jacob deGrom, $10,900, facing off against the Washington team that is essentially Bryce Harper and it's everyone else. So really, really like him as well. And I'm rolling him out there. Not an expensive combo, $18,300 to get both these guys in your lineup. For me, I think that deGrom's the top pitcher. I think that Anderson is your best value pitcher. So pairing them together just makes a whole lot of sense here for me tonight. I'm a big fan of doing that. Once again, Mr. Kyle Schwarber made his way into my lineup. Also got a little price decrease on DraftKings, down to $3,200 today. Was $3,400 last night. Catcher and outfield eligible. Obviously, you're playing him at catcher where you can, but I like the spot for him once again against the Reds. So I'm playing him there at $3,200. First base, I'm going with Victor Martinez. And this is a guy, obviously, you can play at catcher on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, the first baseman, and rightfully so. But $3,800 for him. This is a guy who has been absolutely on fire recently. Getting Taijuan Walker on the other side. Walker's really been struggling. Victor Martinez is the heart and soul of this offense now that Miguel Cabrera is on the shelf. Obviously, JD Martinez, your power hitter, but he's not a consistent hitter. Not a guy you're expecting 2-3 hits out of in a game. That's what Victor Martinez can provide for you. I love him tonight at that price tag as well. I'm going with Rougned Odor. I assume that he'll be batting second. $4,000 against Kyle Kendrick. I liked him on FanDuel as well, but he's really pricey. It chose to save a little bit of money at second base there, so didn't go with him there. But $4,000 here, I really like him. Third base, I went a little bit off of the beaten path, if you will, here with David Freese. David Freese is a guy, hit lefties better than righties throughout his career, and he is getting a matchup tonight with Kyle Gibson, a contact pitcher, but David Freese is really starting to get it going recently. He had a home run last night, multi-hit game a couple games ago as well. Usually hits right in the heart of that Angels order that's really starting to get it going, so I like him at 3,200. I think he's a nice discount at third base where, as always, there's plenty of options, but I decided to save a little bit of money here and go with a guy who's an established hitter, and I think he's a fine option there around that price tag. If you can guess my shortstop, well, of course you can guess my shortstop. It's Troy Tulowitzki, $4,600. Not a bad price tag on DraftKings once again in a good matchup. You're going to want yourself some Colorado bats. I think Tulowitzki the best of those guys. Obviously, Arenado, a guy that's in play as well, but you got to pay quite a bit more for him. So I'm going with Tulo at shortstop. Once again, head and shoulders above the rest at shortstop. I mean, Jed Lowry, you've got at $5,000 tonight. You've got Carlos Correa at $4,900. I mean, Jed Lowry's on the DL, and he's more expensive than Troy Tulowitzki. So Troy Tulowitzki is the guy that you want at shortstop once again. In the outfield, paying for bats. If there was a righty on the mound for Texas, I'd probably be paying for some Colorado bats, but not a route that I'll be taking mostly tonight, especially with Charlie Beckham being $5,700 on DraftKings. So I went with Andrew McCutchen, $4,700. He's been really, really heating up over the past month or so, coming off a couple nice games as well. So he's a guy that I'm certainly looking at at $4,700, a nice cheap price against Jason Vargas. He gets a lefty. We know throughout his career, crushes lefties. I like that price tag a lot for him. Rolling with him. Once again, going with Josh Hamilton also at $4,500. Once again, picking on Kyle Kendrick. I mean, fortunately for you, there's only one more spot, so I can't keep talking about picking on Kyle Kendrick, but there cannot be enough time in the day for me to pick on Kyle Kendrick. I love picking on him. He is awful in every aspect. And then Gerardo Parra. He's going up against Danny Salazar, so it is a tougher matchup than you'd like, but Gerardo Parra has just absolutely mashed righties throughout his career. And people are acting like this is just a new thing, but this is what he's been his entire career. He's been a righty specialist. So he's the guy that's matching up against Danny Salazar, who's had troubles with the long ball. Parra's got 9 homers on the year, most of them leading off games. So Gerardo Parra at $3,500, I feel like it's just too cheap here. And I'm a huge fan of Gerardo Parra tonight, even in a fairly tough matchup against Danny Salazar. So with that, that's going to wrap things up. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Colossus, our Optimizer, our cheat sheets. A lot of great content at dailyfantasycafe.com. If you got any questions, find us on there. Find me at Big Italy 42. And good luck tonight.